There is a weight that no hand can measure and no scale can define. It does not rest on your shoulders, but you feel it pressing down. It does not bind your ankles, yet it keeps you from rising. And it is this weight, invisible, yet undeniable, that keeps so many of us from taking the flight into peace, into purpose, into freedom. It is the weight of what we refuse to release. The stories we rehearse, the wounds we keep fresh, the guilt we cradle like a memory we believe we must protect. And though we long to soar, we stay grounded because we've convinced ourselves that to let go is to forget, but forgetting is not the way forward. Releasing is. You cannot take flight while dragging yesterday behind you like a rusted anchor. You cannot rise into the light of your divine essence while gripping the shadows of resentment. The soul was not designed for heaviness. The soul was made to move like wind through skylight, spacious, free, but ego convinces us that our identity depends on the weight we carry, that our suffering is who we are, that our hurt makes us real. And so we hold on, we grip tightly to the pain, thinking it gives us meaning. But I ask you now, what has pain truly given you besides more of itself? You were not born into this world to suffer endlessly under the burden of your past. You were not sent here by Source to collect wounds like medals and wear your trauma like a crown of proof. You were born to remember that you are already whole, already enough, already free. But you cannot awaken to that truth if your hands are full of what no longer serves you. Flight requires emptiness. Not emptiness in the sense of lack, but the kind of emptiness that is sacred, the emptiness of surrender, of openness, of trust. Birds do not rise by adding more weight to their wings. They rise because they were never meant to carry anything but the wind. And you, dear soul, were never meant to carry all that you're holding. Let go, not because it erases the past, but because the past was never meant to be your prison. Let go of who they said you were. Let go of what didn't happen the way you hoped. Let go of the apology that never came. Let go of the outcome you never received. Let go of the belief that you are broken. You are not broken. You are burdened. And there's a great difference. A bird with a stone in its beak is not incapable of flight. It simply needs to drop what it's holding. And the most powerful act you can perform in this lifetime is to unclench your spiritual fists and release what you've clung to for far too long. We live in a world that glorifies accumulation of things, of titles, of experiences, but also of wounds, of grievances, of stories. But your path to peace is subtraction, not addition. Every spiritual master, every awakened soul, every truly liberated being will tell you it's not what you gain that sets you free, it's what you release. The Buddha did not awaken by becoming more. He awakened by becoming less identified with form, with desire, with self. What are you willing to become less of so that you can become more of what you truly are? Are you willing to be less right so you can be more peaceful? Are you willing to be less certain so you can be more trusting? Are you willing to be less attached so you can be more free? Because to fly, you must let the heaviness fall away. And the heaviest thing you carry is the belief that you must carry it. There is a sacred law of the universe that is always at work. The more you resist letting go, the more you attract situations that force you to. Because your soul knows what your ego denies that your healing is in the release. That freedom is not granted by anything outside you. It is unveiled when you unbind yourself from within. So many people pray for peace but refuse to put down the sword. So many seek happiness while holding on to what hurts. But you cannot have both. You cannot live in the light and feed the shadows. You cannot ascend while gripping the ground, and you cannot evolve while protecting your pain. You have a choice. And this moment, this very breath, is the threshold. You can continue to identify with your wounds. you can keep rehearsing the stories of what they did, what you lost, what didn't go your way. Or you can stop. You can take a holy pause and you can say to yourself, I've carried this long enough. I don't need this to be me anymore. This is not denial. This is liberation. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is wisdom. Releasing is not passive. It is powerful. It is not forgetting the past. It is understanding that your past does not have the authority to define your future unless you keep giving it the microphone. You came here to transcend, to transmute, to rise beyond, not to escape life, but to remember who you are within it. And you are not the hurt you experienced. You are the awareness that held it. You are not the betrayal. You are the witness. You are not the grief. You are the vast presence in which that grief arose and passed. You are not the weight. You are the sky. And nothing that happened in your story is heavy enough to keep you from remembering your true nature unless you decide it is. Take a moment now, not with your mind, but with your heart. Ask yourself quietly, what have I made heavier than it needs to be? What story are you still living inside of that no longer matches your vision of peace? What label, what memory, what name or identity have you fused with your sense of self, and does it still serve your highest path? If it doesn't, let it go. If it hurts, bless it and let it go. If it stirs up anger, acknowledge it and let it go. If it makes you feel like less than the infinite soul you are, breathe deeply and let it go. No one will do this for you. This is your sacred responsibility. No one else is inside your consciousness with a broom, sweeping out the resentment, the doubt, the guilt. Only you can do that. And you do it not because others deserve it, but because you do. You deserve peace. You deserve to wake up unburdened. You deserve to feel light. And flight, true spiritual flight, is what happens when the soul remembers that its natural state is freedom. You are not your wounds. You are not your fears. You are not the broken dreams or the roads that didn't lead where you hoped. You are the one who has survived it all and now stands at the edge of a new becoming. But you can't take off until you release what weighs you down. The caterpillar must surrender the ground before it becomes the butterfly. The leaf must release the tree to dance with the wind. And the soul must release the ego's grip to remember it was never confined to begin with. Release is the sacred act of trust. It is saying to the universe, I no longer choose to carry what you never asked me to hold. You don't heal by holding tighter. You heal by surrendering. And as you surrender, a miracle occurs. The heart begins to lighten, the breath deepens, the mind softens, the world looks less threatening, love finds you more easily, joy visits more often. And suddenly the life you were meant to live is no longer on hold because you stop carrying the delay disguised as pain. You are not behind, you are not late, you are exactly where you need to be to remember the sky has always been waiting for you to rise. So often we say we want to be free, but what we really mean is we want to be free on our terms. We want to let go, but only if we know what will come next. We want to trust, but only if we can control the outcome. And this is where most souls stall. Not because life isn't offering us wings, but because we're still trying to fly while dragging the ground behind us. But let me ask you this. Has clinging ever brought you peace? Has gripping ever led to grace? Or have you noticed that every time you let go, really let go, the next step appeared more clearly, the burden grew lighter, and something inside you finally exhaled? The irony of the spiritual path is that we do not grow by adding more. We grow by shedding what was never us to begin with. Not one layer of pain was your true self. Not one scar defined you. Not one fearful thought ever spoke with the voice of your soul. And yet, we identify with them because we've forgotten the art of being rather than becoming. We think we must become something extraordinary. But the soul is already extraordinary. The only task is to remove what clouds that remembrance, like a sculptor chipping away at marble to reveal the figure within your journey. It's not about chasing something new. It's about uncovering what has always been there. Your divine essence, and this essence is weightless. You do not need to fix yourself. You only need to free yourself. You don't need to gather more knowledge. You need to unlearn the lies. You don't need to become powerful. You already are. You simply need to drop the thoughts, the judgments, the traumas, and the identities that told you otherwise. The ego says, you must be more. The soul whispers, you already are. And when you listen closely, you will hear that whisper underneath every heartbeat, every breath, every still moment where you're not trying to be anything, you are simply present. In that moment, you are flying. Because flight is not a destination, it is a state of being. It is alignment with who you truly are beneath the noise. Now, you may ask, how do I begin to let go? You begin by notice when a thought carries heaviness. Notice when a memory returns not to heal you, but to punish you. Notice when a belief makes your chest tight or your energy dim. That is not truth. That is ego disguised as memory. And you have the power right here, right now, to witness it, thank it for its role, and release it like a bird from the cage of your mind. This is not a one-time act. It is a sacred practice. Every day, you must ask yourself, does this thought serve my flight? Does this feeling expand me or bind me? Is this belief lifting me or holding me down? If it is not helping you soar, it is not coming from your highest self. Release it. You don't need it. And in its place, choose a lighter thought, a loving thought, a truer thought. Choose gratitude over grievance. Choose faith over fear. Choose now over then. And choose to see every single moment of your life, even the painful ones, as teachers rather than burdens. Because when you shift your perception, what once weighed you down becomes the very force that lifts you. Do you see the paradox? What was once pain becomes purpose. What was once failure becomes foundation. What was once sorrow becomes spaciousness. But only when you stop resisting, only when you stop identifying with it as you. And in that sacred shift, the alchemy of awakening your soul begins to remember you were never the wound. You were always the healer. You were never the broken piece. You were always the whole. You were never the story. You were always the silent awareness in which the story unfolded. And you were never meant to carry it all. That was never your purpose. So ask yourself now, what is the weight I've been carrying that I no longer wish to bring into tomorrow? Perhaps it's the weight of comparison, the belief that you must measure your worth against others, that if someone else succeeds, you've somehow failed, that your path must look like theirs to be valid. But the truth is, no two souls have the same sky to fly in. You have your own direction, your own design, your own sacred winds. And when you stop comparing your flight to someone else's, you begin to soar in your own unique rhythm. Or perhaps it's the weight of shame, the echo of past choices you no longer align with. But hear this with all your heart. You are not your past. You are the awareness that learned from it. Guilt serves no one when it becomes a home. Let it be a guide, not a jail. Take the lesson, release the judgment, and free yourself. The soul does not evolve by condemning itself. It evolves by choosing love again and again. Maybe the weight you carry is anger that hot, consuming fire that promises strength but only burns the vessel that holds it. Anger often masks grief, and grief is love with nowhere to go. Let it go. Not for them, for you. Because you were not born to be consumed by flames. You were born to be illuminated by light. Or perhaps it's the weight of the unknown, the fear of what you can't control, can't see, can't predict. But my friend, life was never meant to be controlled. It was meant to be trusted. Faith is the wings, uncertainty is the sky, and trust is the wind beneath it all. When you stop needing to know where you're going, you finally arrive in the now, and the now is the only place you ever truly had to be. So much of what we carry isn't ours to hold. We carry expectations we never agreed to, roles we never wanted, pain passed down through generations. But just because it's been handed to you does not mean you have to carry it forward. The chain ends when you say it does. The pattern dissolves when you choose to wake up. And waking up isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's simply a moment of quiet clarity when you sit alone with your breath and realize, I'm done carrying what doesn't feel like love. That's the moment the flight begins. And once you taste it, even once, you will never forget what it feels like to be free. There is something miraculous that happens when you no longer resist the falling away, when you no longer mourn what is leaving, but bless it on its way. In that holy space, you are not losing, you are remembering. You are not being emptied, you are being refined. The acorn must crack for the oak to emerge. The shell must break for the light to pour in. And yes, it feels like loss, but in truth, it is birth. The death of who you are not is the beginning of who you've always been. Do not grieve what you release. It was never yours to keep. You are not here to hoard old identities. You are here to embody truth. And truth is light. Truth is weightless. Truth needs no defense, no protection, no mask. The most powerful thing you can do in a world obsessed with appearance is to become weightless, to become real, to say, I don't need to hold this story anymore. I don't need to defend this pain. I don't need to explain why I'm healing. I only need to return to peace. Because peace does not argue, peace does not beg, peace does not carry a ledger of wrongs. It does not keep score. Peace simply is. And when you stop trying to earn it, when you stop believing it must be deserved, you realize peace is your natural state. You were never without it. You were only distracted. The distractions came in many forms. The noise of comparison, the addiction to busyness, the need to be seen, the compulsion to be understood. But peace never left you. It was waiting quietly underneath the rubble of all that trying. Flight is not about rising above others. It is about rising above the noise, the inner dialogue that says, you're not enough, you haven't done enough, you don't deserve rest. That voice is not the voice of God. That is the voice of conditioning. And the moment you stop identifying with it, you begin to fly. Because flight isn't about escaping life, it's about engaging life from a higher vantage point. When a bird soars above the storm, it's not avoiding the sky, it's simply rising to where the storm no longer reaches. And so must you. There will always be chaos on the ground, always some drama, some fear, some grievance pulling at your feet. But you are not your feet, you are your wings. And your wings are made of faith, of surrender, of the deep knowing that you are carried by something greater than circumstance. What is this something greater? Call it what you will. God, source, the Tao, divine intelligence. The name matters less than the experience of it. And the experience of it is this: peace without reason, joy without cause, love without condition. When you rest in that space, you will realize nothing was ever missing. You just couldn't feel it through the weight you were carrying. Release is the doorway to the divine. You do not need to beg the universe for peace. You need only make space for it. Peace does not need to be created. It only needs to be uncovered. Imagine your soul as a radiant sun always shining. The clouds of resentment, fear, guilt, and control only obscure it, never extinguish it. The work is not to chase light. The work is to dissolve clouds. And how do you dissolve a cloud? Not with force, not with war, with awareness. Awareness is the great dissolver. When you see clearly what you've been carrying without judgment, without shame, the weight begins to lift. So take a breath now and simply ask, what am I ready to see? What truth have I avoided? Because I feared what it would ask me to release. Perhaps it's the truth that your identity is not in your trauma. Perhaps it's the truth that your worth is not defined by your productivity. Perhaps it's the truth that your pain has been a teacher, not a punishment. Or perhaps it's the truth that you're allowed to let go, even if no one else says sorry. There are no prerequisites to freedom. There is only your decision, your inner yes. And the moment you say yes to release, the sky opens, the burdens loosen, and your wings begin to stretch again. But the ego will not go quietly. It will tell you, if you let go, you'll be exposed. If you release control, you'll fall. If you forgive, you'll be weak. None of that is true. It is the ego that fears the sky because it cannot survive in openness. The ego feeds on structure, on story, on certainty. But the soul is water. The soul is wind. The soul is light. It cannot be contained. And when you live from soul, you do not need to know. You only need to be. There is an ancient wisdom that lives inside you, a compass that doesn't use logic but resonance. You feel it when you are near truth. You feel it when you are near joy. You feel it when something heavy suddenly feels light, and you know this is the path. Follow that. That is your wings speaking, and they will never lead you astray. But you must be willing to silence the noise, to step away from the collective panic, the chronic comparison, the constant mental commentary. You must dare to pause, to breathe, to listen inwardly, because in that space, the divine speaks, not with thunder, but with stillness, not with answers, but with presence. And that presence is what lifts you. You are not waiting for the sky to open. You are remembering that you are already in it. The weight you've been carrying is not keeping you grounded. It's keeping you distracted from the fact that you are already soaring. You just haven't opened your eyes to it. The more you release, the clearer you see, the lighter you become, and the more you begin to trust not the future, not the outcome, but yourself, your soul, your center. This is the liberation the saints spoke of. The freedom the mystics danced in, the peace the sages pointed to when they said, "Be still and know." Know what? Know that you are already home. Know that the wings were never outside of you. Know that everything you've ever sought is not in the distance, it is within. But it cannot be felt while carrying weight that was never meant to be yours. So lay it down, beloved soul. Lay down the proving. Lay down the defending. Lay down the striving. Lay down the waiting for permission. You are allowed to be light. You are allowed to be free. You are allowed to fly, not someday, not when it all makes sense, not when they apologize, but now. Now is your moment. Now is your portal. Now is the beginning of the rest of your flight. When the soul begins to remember its weightlessness, a quiet revolution takes place. Not in the external world, but in the inner kingdom. This is the true uprising, not against others, not against life, but against the false self you've been conditioned to carry. This uprising is not loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need applause. It simply refuses to carry what is no longer aligned with light. And in this refusal, a powerful truth emerges. You are not here to hold on. You are here to flow through. You are not a container for pain. You are a vessel for presence. And presence is too sacred to be filled with what is no longer real. So if it no longer feels like love, it no longer belongs in your hands. If it no longer resonates with peace, it no longer belongs in your heart. And if it no longer brings you closer to truth, it no longer belongs in your mind. You came to this earth not to collect, but to remember. And memory true memory is not about the past. It is about your origin, the divine essence that preceded all experience, all trauma, all identity. The light you were before the name, before the wound, before the story. That light has never been dimmed, only buried. And every act of letting go is an excavation, a return, a resurrection. The ego will call it loss, but the soul knows better. The soul calls it rebirth. Yes, rebirth. You will be reborn many times in this life, not just once. And each rebirth will cost you the version of yourself you thought you had to be. Each flight will ask you to shed another layer, to drop another burden, to trust more deeply than before. This is not regression, this is expansion. Every shedding is sacred. You shed illusions, you shed attachments, you shed roles you never truly agreed to, and one by one you return to the center of who you are, vast, open, free. And when you return there, the world begins to look different. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer perform, you presence. You no longer grasp, you allow. You no longer ask, how do I control this? But instead, what is this here to teach me? This is what it means to live from soul. And soul does not carry the past like a wound. It carries only the present like a flame. In that flame, everything that is false will burn away, and that is the grace of it. You are not being punished, you are being purified. All that is being asked of you is this: stop carrying what you don't want to become. If you hold resentment, you become it. If you carry fear, it becomes your lens. If you grip the past, it becomes your prison. But if you hold truth, you become peace. If you carry stillness, you become presence. If you walk in surrender, you become weightless. And when you become weightless, you don't even have to try to fly. You simply rise, like a feather no longer pinned down by ego, like a breath finally released into the world, like a soul no longer apologizing for its light. This is your destiny, not to strive, not to suffer, but to rise. And this rising cannot be done from effort alone. It must be done from trust. Trust that life is not working against you, it is working through you. That every detour was a redirection. That every heartbreak was a doorway. That every ending was a sacred invitation to begin again lighter this time. Have you noticed how nature never clings? The trees release their leaves without asking when the new ones will come. The river flows forward, never backward, never doubting its direction. The sun does not mourn the night, it simply returns again and again. And yet, we, the most conscious of creation, resist this natural rhythm. We hold on to last season's leaves. We grip the banks of the past. We beg the night not to fall. But healing is in the rhythm, and peace is in the release. So stop trying to force stillness through control. Allow it through surrender. Stop demanding that life obey your timeline. Let it unfold according to the greater wisdom that forms stars and births galaxies. That same wisdom is guiding your unfolding. You don't need to rush. You don't need to fight. You don't need to earn your flight. You only need to step out of the illusion that you were ever grounded to begin with. Your spirit was never bound. It was only your identification with the binding that made you feel stuck. It is not your job to carry every lesson forever. Some lessons are meant to be learned and then released. Some pains are meant to be felt and then transmuted. And some experiences are meant to pass through you, not stay inside you. Release is not rejection. It is integration. You take the wisdom. You leave the wound. You take the growth. You leave the guilt. You take the lesson. You leave the label. You are not who you were when the pain happened. You are who you became after it. And the more you release the story, the more you can honor the strength it gave you without needing to keep reliving the scene. You cannot write a new chapter while rereading the old one. And you cannot fly into your future while defending the architecture of your past. So breathe now. Breathe and ask your soul, what am I defending that I no longer even believe in? Because that is where the heaviest weights hide in old beliefs you don't even resonate with anymore. Beliefs like, I must be perfect. I'm not worthy unless I achieve. I'm only lovable if I'm needed. I can't rest until I've proven something. These beliefs are not you. They are inherited, adopted, programmed. And they are optional. Choose again. Choose freedom over form. Choose essence over expectation. Choose truth over tradition. You do not owe anyone the version of you that you've outgrown. Your only allegiance is to your becoming. And becoming requires lightness. Becoming requires courage. Becoming requires space. And above all, becoming requires letting go. There is nothing left to prove. No weight left worth carrying. You have already survived what was meant to break you. You are here, and you are free to choose peace, not someday, but now. So put it all down. The apology that never came, the identity that no longer fits, the guilt that was never yours, the grief you've already honored, the expectations that exhaust you, the fear that says you're not ready. Let it all fall. Because the moment you stop gripping the past, the future no longer frightens you. And the moment you stop defending the pain, healing finds you without effort. You don't need to chase purpose. You are purpose. Once you stop covering it up with everything you think you must be, the sky does not explain itself to the ground. It just opens wide, blue, boundless. So must you. Your lightness is your truth. Your peace is your power. And your freedom is already here beneath the weight you are finally willing to release. So rise. You're ready. Let go and fly. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. There is a sacred truth that waits patiently for you to hear it beneath the noise of memory, beneath the noise of pain, beneath the clutter of old stories you've told yourself again and again until they've shaped your entire identity. And that sacred truth is this: the past is not who you are. It is only who you were convinced to believe you are. We live in a world that has taught us to tether our sense of self to timelines. This is who I am, we say, pointing backward to a broken childhood, to a betrayal, to the years we were unseen, unloved, misunderstood. But there is no freedom in chaining yourself to a story that no longer serves the evolution of your soul. The past is like a wake behind a boat, shows where you've been, but it cannot steer you forward. It has no power unless you reach back, pick it up, and place it over your face like a mask. So many souls walk this earth in suffering, not because of what happened, but because they won't let what happened stop happening. They replay it, rehearse it, reaffirm it, until it becomes a costume they wear so tightly they forget they were ever anything else. But hear me, there is something within you that was never hurt, never abandoned, never unloved, never broken, and that part of you, that divine eternal presence, is your truest identity. You are not the frightened child. You are not the failed relationship. You are not the financial loss, the addiction, the mistake, or the moment of collapse. You are not your trauma. You are not your depression. You are not the echo of someone else's inability to love you. You are the soul who survived, the breath that kept going, the consciousness that chose to keep waking up every morning, even in the dark. You are the observer of all those moments, not the moments themselves. But here's what the ego does. It tries to build a kingdom out of memory. It clings to identity because identity feels safe. Even if that identity is steeped in pain, it is still familiar. And the ego would rather have a predictable prison than an open, unknown sky. To stop using the past as your identity, you must first recognize that it was only ever a teacher, not a sculptor. It shaped moments, yes, but it was never meant to define your essence. Pain shows up in your life as a mirror, as a message. as a master, but it does not have to become your home. Imagine walking through a forest and tripping over a rock. You fall, scrape your knee, and it hurts. Do you stay on the ground for the rest of your life pointing to the stone? Do you carry that stone in your pocket forever, telling every person you meet, this rock is who I am? Or do you learn where it lay, stand up, dust yourself off, and walk on with greater awareness? When you identify with your past, you are trying to live life looking in the rearview mirror. And the soul does not move backward. The soul is always now, always forward, always present. The soul cannot even see the past unless the mind drags it there. Every time you say, this happened to me, ask yourself, but is it happening now? Most often, the answer is no. What's happening now is peace. What's happening now is silence. What's happening now is the beating of your heart and the rise and fall of your breath. What's happening now is life a new canvas, but your thoughts may still be coloring it with the old brushstrokes of yesterday. Let me remind you of something sacred. You were born whole. You came into this world not as a product of pain, but as a vessel of light. And though the world may have tried to convince you otherwise, though it may have tried to rename you with its labels and limitations, it cannot touch your essence. Not truly. Your soul is untouched by suffering. It simply witnesses. It simply learns. It simply evolves. You have the power right now to return to that essence. Not by erasing the past, but by releasing it. Not by forgetting what happened, but by refusing to allow it to narrate your present. You are the author now. You hold the pen. The chapter has ended. Why are you still rereading it when the page is blank and the ink is still wet? Forgiveness is not about saying what happened was okay. It's about saying what happened no longer owns me. It's not about them. It's about your liberation. It's about untying yourself from the anchor that's kept your soul from rising. And if you think you need closure before you move forward, let me tell you something gently, but clearly, closure is not something you get from the past. Closure is what you give yourself by no longer needing anything from it. The moment you stop waiting for an apology, for understanding, for justice, for healing from the one who hurt you, that is the moment you become free. The past is not a prophecy. It is not a verdict. It is not a prison. It is a place you passed through. And the only reason it continues to feel real is because you revisit it so often that you forget to see where you are now. Think of it like this. You are standing in a beautiful field, flowers blooming, sky open, birds singing, and yet you keep looking down at an old photograph of a storm. You keep describing the storm. You tell others about the storm. But if you would only lift your eyes, you would see that the storm has passed. Your pain was real, yes. Your heartbreak was valid. Your tears were sacred. But your spirit was always stronger than the wound. Do not let the wound become your name. You have been calling yourself by the names of your scars, but your true name is peace. Your true name is joy. Your true name is I am, not I was, not I broke, not they hurt me. Just I am. The past cannot survive in the light of full presence. Every time you step into the now, the chains fall away. Every time you choose gratitude, every time you choose stillness, every time you choose self-compassion, you are reminding yourself that this is who you are. Not the version of you who had to survive, but the version of you who now gets to thrive. The world around you may keep bringing up who you were, but you don't have to answer to that name. You can say, that was a chapter. I'm not erasing it, but I am no longer reading it. And when the mind tries to pull you back, because it will, you gently say, thank you for trying to protect me, but I am safe now. That story is over. I choose peace. You are not obligated to carry pain just because you once held it. You are not disloyal to your past by outgrowing it. You are not arrogant for choosing healing. You are brave. This world needs more souls who have dared to release the roles they were cast into and step into the freedom of presence, who have stopped introducing themselves by their wounds and started radiating their wisdom instead. The ones who no longer bleed on people who didn't cut them. The ones who turned their hurt into insight, their sorrow into depth, and their history into higher ground. You are one of those souls. You don't have to wait another moment to begin, not after the next book, not after the next apology, not after the next therapy session or healing ritual. You can begin right here by saying, I am not my story. I am the soul who observed it, who lived it, who learned from it, and who now releases it. The ego may resist. It may say, but who am I without my pain? And that is the question. That is the threshold. Because once you remove the story, what remains is truth. And truth is simple. Truth is love. Truth is breath. Truth is that you are already whole, already divine, already worthy, not because of what you've endured, but because of who you've always been beneath it all. Now breathe. Let it go. Let yourself risen not as a reaction to your past, but as a response to your soul's invitation to be free. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. And right now, in this moment, you can choose peace. You can choose to stop using the past as your identity. You can choose to come home to yourself. You can choose now, and now, and now again, because this moment, this eternal now is where your true life lives. And the past will let go of you the moment you let go of it. What would your life feel like if you woke up tomorrow with no memory of who you used to be? Not in the sense of forgetting, but in the sense of no longer carrying the emotional weight of it. What if all that remained was this moment and the fullness of being present with it? Can you imagine the lightness in your chest, the stillness in your thoughts, the soft freedom of not having to explain your pain anymore? So much of human suffering is not in the moment, it's in the remembering. And not just the remembering, but the identifying with what is remembered. A wound is not just a scar, it becomes a name tag. A mistake becomes a sentence, a betrayal becomes a worldview. You begin to see life not as it is, but as you were hurt. But the divine does not see you through the eyes of your history. The divine sees you through the eyes of your essence. It knows only the truth of who you are underneath the layers you've gathered to protect yourself. It sees the eternal flame that flickers even in your darkest hour. It whispers gently every time you're quiet enough to hear, you are not your timeline. You are timeless. Let me say this again. You are timeless. You are not the events that happened to you. You are not the age at which they happened. You are not frozen in that year, that room, that night. You are the consciousness that passed through it all and still miraculously remained. And what a miracle that is. That despite the weight, you continued to move. That despite being misunderstood, you sought to understand. That despite being unloved in some moments, you never stopped yearning to love. That's not weakness. That's divinity remembering itself through you. So how do we stop using the past as our identity? We begin by watching our thoughts. Without judgment, just with awareness. Every time you say, I always do this, pause. That's not your identity, that's a pattern. And patterns can be released. Every time you say, people always leave me, stop. That's not your truth, that's a wound speaking. And wounds can be healed. Every time you say, I'm just the kind of person who listened to how your words are casting a spell over your life, what you affirm becomes your reality. And if you keep affirming your pain, you will keep living inside it. Instead, begin speaking from the present truth of who you are becoming, not the ghost of who you were. Say, I am learning to stay. I am remembering that I am loved. I am discovering that I am enough. I am shedding the skin of who I was told to be. I am here now, free. This is not about spiritual bypassing. It's not about pretending the past didn't happen. It's about refusing to let it be the script that writes the rest of your life. There is a difference between acknowledging the wound and identifying as the wound. One brings wisdom, the other breeds imprisonment. What if, instead of repeating the narrative, you honored the lesson? What if, instead of saying, I was abandoned, you said, I was taught to find wholeness within? What if, instead of saying, I was betrayed, you said, I was shown where not to place my trust so I could learn to trust myself? The meaning you give to your past is the power it has over your present. You get to redefine the story not by changing what happened, but by changing what you believe it means about you. The caterpillar does not mourn the skin it shed. It does not grieve its days of crawling. It simply surrenders to the transformation. It allows the becoming. And that becoming means releasing everything that no longer serves its wings. You too are here to fly. You too are in the chrysalis of evolution. And your past, as painful as it was never meant to be your cage. It was meant to be your cocoon. Every wound held the seed of awakening. Every heartbreak cracked you open just wide enough for light to pour in. Every silence you endured trained you to hear your own voice with clarity. You do not become who you are in spite of your past. You become who you are because you chose not to be limited by it. But you must choose again and again and again, because the mind will try to pull you back. The ego will whisper, don't forget what they did. Don't trust. Don't change. Because change means ego death. And the ego would rather wear the crown of pain than risk the vulnerability of rebirth. But you are not your ego. You are the vast, infinite awareness beneath the ego. The sky, not the clouds. The ocean, not the waves. The stillness beneath the noise. When you stop identifying with the past, you begin to live from that space of stillness. And from there, every moment becomes new. Every encounter becomes sacred. Every breath becomes a doorway to the now. There is no one moment of healing. Healing is a way of being. It is the decision to show up again and again, not as the wounded self, but as the witnessing self. Not as the victim, but as the soul. And when I say soul, I mean that eternal, changeless, luminous core of you that has never been touched by trauma, that part of you that remains untouched by time, that part of you that looks through your eyes and says, I have always been here. That part of you is where the power is. And you access that part by being still, by listening, by letting go of the need to explain yourself to others, by dropping the need to be understood, because the soul is not interested in being understood. It is only interested in being aligned. Alignment is peace. Alignment is presence. Alignment is saying, I don't need to hold this pain anymore just to prove it existed. Because it did. It existed. And you survived it. Now it's time to stop surviving and begin living. It's time to stop rehearsing the story and start writing a new one. It's time to take off the mask of the past and reveal the face of your true being, radiant, calm, eternal. You do not need to convince anyone of your worth. You only need to remember it. You do not need to fix yourself. You only need to remove what was never truly you to begin with. All that shame, that's not yours. All that fear, that was learned. All that guilt, that was inherited. Let it fall. Let it drop like dead leaves in autumn. You don't have to explain why you're changing. You just have to be willing to change. You are not abandoning your past by evolving. You are honoring it by growing beyond it. The past is a chapter, not a prophecy. A footprint, not a prison. A teacher, not your name. So stand now in your fullness, in your truth, in the blazing light of your now. Feel the presence of life not as something happening to you, but as something moving through you. The past cannot enter here. The present is too powerful, too alive, too spacious. And the more you practice presence, the less room there is for old stories. The more you practice forgiveness, the lighter you become. The more you practice compassion, the less you cling. And the more you remember who you truly are, the more the illusion of the past begins to dissolve into the light. There is a space inside you that has never been wounded. A space where no betrayal can enter, no memory can stain, no fear can grow. That space is the silent witness behind all experience. And it's from that space that you are invited now to begin again, not as someone escaping the past, but as someone no longer chained to it. Imagine just for a moment that your entire life was a great stage play. Every person who hurt you, every moment of loss, every heartbreak, they were actors in your soul's theater, playing their part not to defeat you, but to awaken you. What if your suffering was never punishment, but invitation? What if it all existed not to keep you down, but to bring you to this precise threshold where you finally say, I remember now, I am not the character, I am the consciousness behind it. You do not have to keep performing the same role just because you've memorized the lines. You can walk off the stage, you can take off the costume, you can bow in gratitude for the role that taught you strength, and then walk into the next act of your life unburdened, open, whole. But to do that, you must do something radical in a world addicted to suffering. You must give yourself permission to be free. You must stop waiting for the world to release you. It won't. The people who hurt you may never admit they did. The past will never suddenly rewrite itself. The healing is not going to come from out there. It will come the moment you decide, I no longer identify with this version of myself. That's not forgetting, that's not pretending, that's reclaiming, that's awakening. That's stepping into the truth that your spirit is not a victim of time, it is a creator of it. And creation begins in this present moment. When you say, I am not my past, you are not erasing your story, you are simply shifting your authorship. You are saying, yes, that chapter shaped me, but it no longer defines me. And that is the moment everything changes. That is the moment you begin to write again with the ink of possibility rather than the blood of repetition. Let yourself change. The past may resist. Your ego may grieve. The people around you may question who you are becoming. That's okay. That's expected. When a snake sheds its skin, it doesn't explain itself to the old scales it left behind. It simply grows silently, surely, naturally. The soul is not interested in your history. It's interested in your liberation. And liberation does not come through control, through analysis, through endless digging for why. It comes through surrender, through stillness, through finally allowing yourself to be more than what hurts you. Healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it's as simple as not reacting the way you used to, as simple as choosing peace when chaos knocks, as simple as smiling when you once would have shut down. This is what the past cannot touch: your present awareness, your capacity to choose again, your ability to love anyway, to rise anyway, to forgive anyway. Forgiveness, you see, is not just a gift to others sit, is the final key you hold that unlocks the prison of your own pain. It says, I refuse to keep dragging this weight into every room I walk into. I refuse to bring old storms into new days. When you forgive, you are not saying what happened was right. You are saying, my freedom matters more than my resentment. Because resentment is heavy, bitterness is heavy, anger is heavy, and you were never meant to carry so much weight. There is a lightness in letting go. There is a purity in saying, I am no longer the person who needs this story to feel worthy. You are worthy without it, worthy without the suffering, worthy without the label, worthy without the justification. Let me say this clearly and lovingly. You don't owe anyone your suffering. You don't have to keep your pain just to prove how deep it ran. You don't have to relive your trauma just to feel valid. You don't have to stay broken just because someone once told you that was your name. You can rise quietly, gracefully, fully. You can be reborn not into someone new, but into who you've always been beneath the wounds. This is your spiritual inheritance. This is your birthright. This is the divine remembering itself through you. And yes, it takes courage. Yes, it takes stillness. Yes, it takes truth. But everything your soul longs for exists on the other side of identity, on the other side of the story. The moment you say, I choose peace instead, you realign with the essence of life itself. Because life is not interested in your resume of pain, it's interested in your ability to be here, right now, alive, awake, aware. Every morning, when you open your eyes, you are being born again. The world may be the same, but you are not. Every breath is a doorway back to now. Every heartbeat is a reminder that your essence has never been defined by circumstance. You are not what happened to you. You are what you are becoming in this very moment. You are a soul in motion, a spirit in evolution, a being of light wrapped in human form. And you are allowed to outgrow everything that once kept you small. You are allowed to stop telling the story. You are allowed to just be, to walk into a room without needing to explain your pain, to sit in silence without needing to be understood, to laugh again without guilt, to dance again without fear, to love again without protection. Because the truest healing is not in becoming someone new, it's in finally remembering who you were before the world told you to be something else. That version of you, the one beneath the stories, that is the you who is whole. That is the you who was never lost, only covered by the dust of memory. So close your eyes for a moment, breathe. And in that breath, hear the still whisper that says, you are safe now. You are whole now. You are free now. Let it echo. Let it settle into your bones. Let it replace the noise that once screamed your name in pain. Because you are no longer what happened. You are the healing that followed. You are no longer the story. You are the space it unfolded within. You are no longer the victim. You are the vast, unshakable witness. And the witness does not cling. The witness simply is. So breathe again. Smile gently. And remember, the past is a place you visited. It is not where you live. So now, take a breath, a deep, conscious breath, the kind that isn't for survival, but for remembrance. Let it move through you like a wave of light. Let it whisper to every cell in your being, you are no longer what happened. You are what you choose to be now. You see, healing doesn't mean the past vanishes. It means you no longer carry it as your name. You no longer offer it to the world as your introduction. You no longer give it the power to determine what comes next. Because what comes next is yours. Entirely clean, unwritten, not predicted by yesterday, but shaped by your presence today. And maybe that's the greatest spiritual act of all. Not climbing a mountain, not reading another book, not waiting for a thunderbolt from heaven. Maybe it's just sitting quietly and saying to yourself, I do not need to be the person my pain made me. I can be the person my soul has always known me to be. Let the silence, after that truth, be your sanctuary. Let it wash over you. Let it sink in, because no matter how heavy your story has been, no matter how far back it stretches, no matter how many pages were written without your consent, the pen is in your hand now. And with it, you can write something new, not in reaction to your past, but in service to your peace. You can wake up tomorrow and no longer recite the old roles. You can meet the mirror with gentleness, not judgment. You can walk into your relationships not as the person who was wounded, but as the person who has learned to love from wholeness. You can live unburdened. And I say this not as philosophy, not as metaphor, but as deep, sacred truth. You are not your past. You never were. You are not the identity built from pain. You are not the roles you were given when you couldn't defend yourself. You are not the mask you wore to feel accepted. You are not the weight you carried to feel real. You are light. You are awareness. You are love. You are the presence that watched it all and now chooses to let it go. You are the divine wrapped in skin, and the past has served its purpose. It brought you to this threshold. It broke you just enough so that something deeper could open. It challenged you just enough so that surrender became possible. It bruised you just enough so that you'd stop running from stillness and start listening to your soul. So now, thank it. Yes, thank it. Not for what it did, but for what it revealed. Not for the pain, but for the clarity that followed. Not for the suffering, but for the seed of awakening that suffering contained. And once you've thanked it, bless it, then let it go. No need to carry what no longer helps you fly. No need to wear the old name when your spirit has outgrown it. No need to live life looking backwards when your heart only beats in one direction forward. This is the moment, right now, this breath, this stillness, this quiet miracle of being. Let it be enough. Let it be home. Because when you no longer use the past as your identity, something extraordinary happens. You remember who you've always been. And that remembrance is freedom.